Welcome to the Paradise Paradox. My name is Cud Robinson.
Aaron Battle.
Okay, so today we're talking about Project Blue Book. It was a project initiated by the United States Air Force to do an investigation into unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial phenomena to discover if there was anything behind them, or perhaps it was just set up as a low-level debunking exercise.
Is it Superman? Or we just got planes that we forget what they look like?
Yeah.
Or is it just lightning bolts?
Stealth bombers, swamp gas, weather balloons, Roswell aliens coming to steal your underwear off your clothesline, or ball lightning.
Because they're out there and they do steal your mind.
Yep. So we get into all this and more. We did talk about some interesting cases from Project Blue Book, and we analyze Special Report number 14 to see if it has anything interesting to say. And so let's get into it.
Press like on YouTube. Press like on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Pocket Casts. Follow us on Twitter @BattleAZ and Trouble Bubble, and show your support at donate.theparadiseparadox.com.
So, Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book was a project of the United States Air Force.
Did you say Air Force? We should keep that in.
So before there was Project Blue Book, there was another project called Project Sign. It was also given the charge of investigating unidentified flying object reports. After Project Sign, another project started called Project Grudge. Project Grudge was criticized as being a debunking project, and Project Grudge apparently came up with the conclusion that every single unidentified flying phenomena was actually natural in origin, or it was misidentified. But they actually also came to the conclusion that 23% of their objects could not be identified. So there was an obvious disparity there between what they were claiming their conclusion was and what their data actually showed. Anyway, so there was Project Sign, Project Grudge, then Project Blue Book, and Project Blue Book was headed by a man named Hynek, and he was in the beginning he was a skeptic. He wanted to debunk the UFOs, and he was quoted as saying, "The whole subject seems utterly ridiculous." So the theory is the reason why he was chosen was because the Air Force wanted to calm people down, or they wanted to keep them ignorant, depending on how you look at it. And so they chose this man who they knew would be extra harsh on the reports and would give explanations which were rather mundane. So, for example, in 1966, Hynek went to investigate a case in Michigan. There were reports of UFOs in this town in Michigan, and he reported that after 3 hours investigation, he reported that it was nothing more than swamp gas, or that is, it was swamp gas, or the majority of the cases were swamp gas, and swamp gas didn't explain all of them, but that was the main explanation, and the press ran with that and said it was swamp gas, which led to him being ridiculed. Apparently,
Wasn't good enough. I don't think the people were buying it.
No, I don't think so. And this is interesting to look back now and think that in the 50s and 60s, the media was actually very different. Like, how would you describe the difference in from what we've researched?
Well, it appears like they actually wanted to find out something.
Yeah.
They weren't fed. And it's something that I can't even begin to imagine. What the news would be like when the person that's reading, or the reporter that's out on the show, is actually interested in what they're reporting on personally. It's like it's a totally different style of news.
Yeah, so this was before public relations really got big. I mean, Edward Bernays started his work in the 20s, I believe, and in the 50s was when the CIA started launching Project Mockingbird, which is a project designed to manipulate the media within the United States. So at that stage, I guess, from what we can tell from our research, it seems like back then journalists actually had some kind of integrity, and they weren't just going to publish a press release and call that news. They actually wanted to investigate, and they would actually be honest about what they were saying. They weren't necessarily so afraid of being mocked for reporting about these sightings of UFOs.
What blows me away is it's 65 years ago that this would have been going on, and it's like even now it's still a taboo topic. You don't talk about UFOs or any phenomena of that kind because it's just craziness. It's like they've done a good job in pushing that message on. Only crazy people talk about this stuff because it felt weird, man. You're like, homework. We're gonna read Project Blue Book, and it's like, okay, buzzword, Project Blue Book, aliens. That sounds like a cool thing to check out. 314 pages of boring, but extremely well done report. Like from a scientific
So you're referring to Special Report 14 from Project Blue Book.
That's the one you sent me?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was very well done. I think from a scientific point of view, it's just, you said, so, hey, what did you think? And my comment was, well, they did a good job at not answering the question or giving the answer they proposed in the beginning.
Yeah. Basically, it only reveals what it wants to reveal, and it doesn't tell you much more. But in regards to the story of Hynek, it's interesting because when Project Blue Book was finally ended, which I think was around 1970, he actually went on to found another organization. So by the end, he was apparently converted. He was no longer a debunker. He was convinced there was something behind UFOs because he went on to found this organization called the Center for the UFO Study, Center for UFO Studies, or CUFOS. And he was also a consultant on the Steven Spielberg movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that's why some people at the time, ufologists, lauded that movie as being extremely accurate when it came to Close Encounters.
You wonder where they get their info from.
Well, in this case, they got it from Hynek.
Well, that seems like a pretty good source.
Yeah.
He's probably reviewing all the different reports. He's getting free information from crazy farmers.
Yeah, and then goes on to sell it in the movie industry. Yeah, it's a pretty good deal.
Markets for you. I mean, after reading the whole
Special Report 14,
just to be right,
that's the one we looked at. Yeah,
you mentioned to me that it's one of the most popular.
Yeah. And I think I think it's the one that gets talked about the most. But I think the reason for that is it was the one that was released in the media as they were holding it up and saying this is our shining example of our conclusions of what we think of UFOs. And so this is the one which became popularized in the press.
For the size, I mean, it took a lot of data. Like, it would have taken him a long time. There have been a lot of interviews and written accounts that were absorbed by this report. I mean, just in the year 1952, there was over 1,200 sightings of civilians that were taken into the report. But what is a little bit misleading is that it's done from a statistical point of view. Like, all the information is all categorized and filtered in, but it's like they're trying to fit it into boxes, and they're not actually exploring the phenomena.
Yep. That's exactly what they're trying to do, and it even states that they're trying to find these trends or create a model of UFOs and the actually what it comes down to. They look at about 400 cases, or the sample size for this report is about 400 cases, and they narrow it down to 12 cases where they say these are the ones where we have good information and the source is reliable, and it can't possibly be an aircraft or a helicopter or anything like that, or a bird or a reflection of a windscreen, a glowworm, Venus, or any other thing like that. So they narrow it down to these 12 cases, and they give these short summaries with diagrams, so it's like one or two pages for each case, and they all seem very ordinary. If a sighting of a UFO can be ordinary, well, they certainly made it seem so.
I don't think that was really the intention,
No.
but by looking at the questionnaire they would have been giving the public,
Yeah.
they're looking for things like, what sound did it make? Or what color was it? Or
what was that angle from the horizon which it disappeared when it went out of view? Something like that.
Yeah, angles and speed.
Yeah.
It's like, was it going, I don't even know, like materialization and it doesn't specifically ask, does it disappear? But asking a question like, was it going less than or more than 400 mile per hour? It's like, that's between fast and faster.
Yeah. How is anyone going to judge that? I don't know. Unless you're a trained aircraft pilot.
Or a policeman.
Pilot. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because I was a little bit left, unsatisfied with the report. So I jumped on YouTube and checked out a few different videos of like whistleblowers and associated Blue Book interview material. And most of the people that are on there, it's hard to say, what's real and what isn't. They're just videos on YouTube. But they all talk about speeds of like 10,000 miles per hour or faster. And so I really, and there was no one really there that I think read radars and things to be able to give you any like solid information. Like a lot of the information about the information is like, strategies in the ways that they threatened people inside the projects not to talk about information or what would happen if you were a whistleblower.
Okay.
So it was like, I don't know. You read the report. It's like you get through it, and it's pretty dissatisfying.
Yeah. And I think that was, I do think that was the intention. I think they wanted to release this thing, which was mundane and boring, and just they provided this conclusion. I'll explain it in a moment, but they provided this conclusion which basically made no sense, but dissuaded anyone from talking about the subject ever again.
Yeah, because you don't want to be crazy.
Yeah, well, I think that came in later. That's more outside the scope of this program, because this project, I think, was mainly just making it appear ordinary, making it appear like there are these few outlying cases, which, though they're actually, if you look at them objectively, they are very unusual, but the report makes it seem boring, and then who really wants to talk about that anymore? So the press can just dismiss it, and that's that.
That's because there's so many categories for identified and non-identified phenomena of that kind. It's like you told me about one that was a reflection of a window, and it's like, well, whoops! It was it was a light internal car light reflecting off a window that I couldn't work out what it was, and it's all enclosed in your own world.
Yeah.
But most of these are clouds or birds, dust, camera smudge, or they get put into categories like insufficient information or unknown. It's like that. There's no information there.
Well, unknown in this report actually refers to an unidentified flying object. That's what it means when it says unknown.
But like you say, they play it down like that's a small percentage of all of the anomalies that can be accounted for by swamp gas or balloons or what have you.
Yeah. But it doesn't really matter if it's a small percentage. I mean, these people. It even basically says in the report that these people were reasonable people, psychologically sound. That they had no reason to lie. Their credibility was high. As a witness, they were good witnesses, and that's why they're included in the report. But then it does everything it can to dismiss them. Yeah. So in the conclusion, what it says is they're unable to find trends because they're analyzing these 12 cases that they've narrowed it down to, and they say, no two are similar enough that we can say that there's any trend there, so we can't develop a model, and therefore it's unlikely that it's a real phenomena. So how does that make sense? It doesn't seem to follow logically. Just because you can't put things into categories doesn't mean they're not real. To me, that's a non sequitur. That really doesn't follow logically. It's like if I give you a sample of, say, 100 different types of cars from around the world, or 100 different types of insects, and you can't find two that are extremely similar, does that mean that insects aren't real? Of course it doesn't mean that, and that's that's complete nonsense. That's just gobbledygook. The other thing is, then it goes on. Before the conclusion, it has this piece where it starts talking about how when someone initially hears about 2 or 3 UFO reports, of course they normally hear the most lurid, the most sensational ones. And they say, okay, I guess there's something to that, or maybe they even conclude that UFOs are a real phenomenon. And then it describes that people, or especially the personnel in the program, read more and more of these reports until they were reading so many that there was no new information. Which is also, I mean, that's contradictory for one thing, because they said that there's no similarities between these two cases, but then they're also saying that there's no new information. So it can't really be both. But then they say that as the personnel read more and more, they can't help but feel the sense of skepticism, and they would need to make a conscious effort to remain objective, which is really unscientific to say that. It's basically saying, well, we didn't, after looking at hundreds and hundreds of reports, we were pretty bored of it. So therefore, it doesn't exist. No, it doesn't work like that.
That's exactly what they
nonsense.
Say. But the way I interpreted that was that there's so many of these cases, like thousands of these cases, where some go up, some go right, some go left. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much information here that it's just I'm just repeating myself. It's the same stuff over and over, so then it's boring. And they're saying there's no trends because they all equally don't match up. They're all equally unique. But I mean, I guess the trends are, do they fly like or unlike traditional aircraft? But they don't make those comparisons. They go, well, you're telling me that's unidentified, that's a trend, and you're telling me they act weird, that's a trend, and they all have different lights and colors and shades, that's a trend. Yeah, and it's like,
a lot of them have the same shape. A lot of them are in that kind of stereotypical flying saucer shape, or they're in cigar shapes. And so there definitely are trends there.
But someone that was designing the study made that trend sort of,
slide into the background.
Yeah, like as if that's not an important trend. Like that's just that's just what it is. We already know that.
That's the assumed thing. That's not the important thing. The angle at which it disappears over the horizon, that's the important thing.
So what is important? The speed? 400 miles or less or more? It's like, is that important in this case?
Not to me. I couldn't distinguish between those two velocities in any case.
Well, that's why I posed the question, who designed the study? Because that person knew a lot about the area, but didn't exactly know what they were looking for, it appears. Or maybe they did, and they took it the other way.
That's if you're assuming that they came in with the intention of actually doing an honest report, an honest investigation of what UFOs are. But I don't think it was intended to be honest. I think it was intended to be a debunking scheme, and it was intended, at least in part, to settle people down if they had war nerves, if they were worried about the Russians or something like that.
Anyone that reads the report would come to the same conclusion. It's pretty evident that there was no real, there's no real energy going towards finding something out here, other than just documenting how many people see the same thing.
Yeah. So
that's kind of a bummer, isn't it? I mean, like I said, man, I heard, you hear Project Blue Book around the conspiracy circles, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna read a section of this, and I'll see what I think. And it was a letdown.
Yeah.
And to follow up with what you're saying about the way they concluded this whole study, I enjoy the part at the very end. At the very end of the report, it says, considered to be highly improbable that any of the reports of unidentified aerial objects examined in this study represent observations of technical developments outside the range of present-day scientific knowledge. It's like, I don't think that was even captured in any way, anywhere in the report.
So if you have a case where there's like this giant cigar-shaped object, or what looks like an aircraft with no wings, and it has 6 bright lights on the side, and it moves without making a sound,
and it's static.
Yeah, or just hovering in the air without any apparent rotors or anything like that. But apparently that is not indicative at all of any technologically advanced object.
Highly improbable. That is outside the range of present-day scientific knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they give you the same answer now. And it's, we're only half a century plus in front of this reported time. And still no one really seems to want to know about what's going on up there. Or what that is. And it's kind of cool in a way, because I know we see so many movies on aliens and all that. We're not even talking about aliens. We're talking about just unidentified happenings.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so many of these reports. Why are so many people comfortable getting on planes on these on these rockets that take off in one linear form, are very slow and they can't move. They can't. There's no, they're very immobile.
Yeah.
In comparison to what the reports that we're reading, and and I'm still comfortable getting on a plane. That's actually a thought that came through my mind. I'm getting on a plane that takes off in one direction and goes straight across there and then lands again. It's like these UFOs could just run into it, or we could go through one, or they could go through us, and we don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And no one seems to be wanting to ask questions about that.
No one seems to bother. No one seems to care.
It's either somebody knows or they don't know and they don't care. But, I'm only one person and I seem to care a little bit. You're interested in this.
Yeah.
So, and there's a whole scientific body above us that should be looking into this stuff, and it doesn't seem like there's much answers coming out.
Yeah. It's, from what we can tell from Project Blue Book, the question is deliberately ignored and explained away and overlooked. Any way they can justify it or rationalize it or just, basically ignore it. They will. And that's exactly what they did. But there are some interesting cases from Project Blue Book, not from Special Port 14, and we'll get into those in a second. So one interesting case from Project Blue Book, which wasn't reported in Special Report 14, is the Lonnie Zamora incident. So this is a case that happened in New Mexico, in Socorro, New Mexico, in the United States. And this is a case of a police officer. He was driving along the road and he saw something interesting in the dry creek bed by the side of the road. And what he thought at first was that he saw an overturned car, and he thought maybe some kids were speeding and had a crash, and now their car is upside down by the side of the road. So he started moving towards it, and he got out of the car and he saw something aluminium white, but it wasn't really reflective, but it like not chrome, so you couldn't make anything out in the reflection, but it was somewhat shiny. He saw a symbol on the side of this thing, or the side of this vehicle, in big red lettering. And he also saw two guys wearing white coveralls. And as he approached, the guys in white coveralls, he described them as either large children or small adults. The two beings disappeared behind the vehicle. He continued coming towards them with the intention of helping them. Then he started hearing a roaring noise and going from a high frequency to a low frequency. He said it wasn't anything like a jet. A jet is more like a blast, but this is a roaring noise. So he hits the deck and he assumes the thing is going to explode. And the craft apparently took off. Later, Zamora examined the ground near where the craft had been, and he saw there was scorched earth and there was some burning bushes, which is later confirmed by his Sergeant Chavez. And this story was corroborated in some aspects by a farmer, a crazy old farmer named Gary Wilcox, who lived nearby. He said he had a strange experience where he talked to two fellows in white coveralls who said they were on an expedition from Mars. And that's about the extent of the facts of the case. Can you bring up that email so I can read out the quote, the description of Zamora's character? So this is what Project Blue Book's director, Major Hector Quintanilla, this is his comment on the case. There is no doubt that Lonnie Zamora saw an object which left quite an impression on him. There is also no question about Zamora's reliability. He is a serious police officer, a pillar of his church, and a man well versed in recognizing airborne vehicles in his area. He is puzzled by what he saw, and frankly, so are we. This is the best documented case on record, and we still have been unable, in spite of thorough investigation, to find the vehicle or other stimulus that scared Zamora to the point of panic.
What sort of stimulus do you think they're looking for in this vehicle?
Well, I have heard some people speculate that this vehicle was actually the lunar lander. Yeah, so this incident happened in April 1964.
Just looking at this, there are some quite cool pictures of associated incident-related CGI, it looks like.
Yeah, so we've got the diagram there, which Zamora himself drew, and then some people have gone through and created a sort of artist's interpretation of it with the craft. It's like a kind of squashed egg shape or football shape, and this strange red symbol on the side.
That symbol looks familiar. Is that the Illuminati? Oh, well, that's an artist's impression, so, of course that isn't any real footage. So these two guys, or big children, or little people, said they were on a mission from Mars.
Yeah, according to Gary Wilcox, and he was also characterized as a upstanding member of the community, an honest guy, and he was described as having an unimpeachable reputation. Nobody could say a bad thing about him in the community.
So this would have been too early for MK Ultra to try and defame his name.
No, not necessarily. It could have been a case of MK Ultra, but then there's a case of these two people who hadn't necessarily had a conversation describing similar things, describing similar people in different parts of the same town.
So this isn't a once-off, crazy story.
Well, it happened that day, and that's it. Like it never happened again. But there were the two people. There was Officer Zamora, and there was also the farmer Gary Wilcox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. What happened? Is there much? Is there any comments on his career after that?
No. I haven't done any research about that.
No, I mean it's interesting because your reference to the fact that he's a upstanding, creditable, like a pillar of society.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And it's like this sort of thing. I mean, now you'd expect him just to keep his mouth shut and not talk about it.
Probably, yeah.
But at the time, he probably thought he was doing the right thing by telling everyone about it.
Yeah, well, also at the time, I guess he personally didn't have the choice because he'd already radioed to Sergeant Chavez and said, come check this out. And when Chavez arrives and sees that there's a bunch of burning bushes and stuff, he's going to have to explain himself.
Like, what can you do? There's a paddock on fire.
Yeah, it was just, doing some police arson, the normal stuff that we do.
Just getting rid of those reports.
Yeah, just burning some classified documents.
So that story is jumped out as one that you picked that you wanted to share.
Yeah.
What was like the critical point of that story, or just that this is a well documented report?
Yeah, so it's corroborated to some extent by the three witnesses. It's a close encounter of the third kind. One person actually sees these beings, and the other person has a conversation with them. Even the ufologist and paranormal expert Jerome Clark actually mentioned this in his book and said that it's possible that the beings were lying, that they weren't actually from Mars, which of course that wouldn't be surprising if they weren't from Mars, especially at the time, because people it was well accepted at the time that there was no such thing as life on Mars, and so he said that it could open the investigation to other kinds of extraordinary phenomena, for example, demons or something like that.
Okay, I guess that opens up a whole different world of points because obviously the collective societies at that time wouldn't they wouldn't be so conditioned to go aliens, UFOs, life on other planets like we are. Like when you said that story, it sounded like any alien and friends coming to visit Earth, that you'd see at 4:30 on a childhood channel. Like it could be any cartoon. It's like we're conditioned for these ideas. That back then, that sounds like demons just ripped a hole through this dimension, and it could have been anything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
I like comparing the times and trying to put myself in those years of that report, because you think you're coming at it from a completely different mindset.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about this case as well was what the skeptics try to say. The one skeptic named Mansell insisted his first explanation was that Zamora was the victim of a prank of some high school kids. So apparently these these high school kids they were trying to discredit Zamora, and they had arranged for a craft to be, placed in this dry creek bed and then blast off and leave some fire behind. And Menzel was attacked by members of this community. They said, no, that's absolute nonsense. Later, he changed his story and said, oh, well, it was obviously a dust devil, or what in Australia we'd call a willy willy, like a tower of circling wind, like a tornado, except much smaller in its effect, much less powerful. And you have to question what the hell is going through Menzel's mind that he could think that a shiny aluminium white craft with two people around it, that you could actually mistake a dust devil for that. That's there's no way that works as an explanation. That's like really grasping at straws. So then another skeptic, Philip J. Klass, at first he said it was ball lightning, which again, it doesn't match the facts at all. Later he insisted it was a tourism scheme. He insisted that Zamora was actually colluding with the Mayor Bursum of Socorro at the time, and they were trying to increase tourism to the area, and he claimed that Bursum actually owned this land, the dry creek bed, where Zamora had seen the craft, which turned out to be untrue. There was Bursum did not own that land, and I believe the land is still undeveloped. Oh, well, I did see one photo of just a plaque which said this was the site where Zamora witnessed a strange craft. So that's about it. I don't think they really did much for Socorro's tourism industry, really. So if that was a conspiracy to increase their tourism, I think they failed, or they never followed through on it.
Well, not with that attitude. the kids with their amateur rockets couldn't pull it off. Yeah, it's
amazing what high school kids can do. Yeah, with
crepe paper.
Yeah, with a few pipe cleaners and a bit of ticky tacky and some glue. It's a great one you can put together. It's amazing. Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting, but it's quite amazing that these skeptics, they just seem to grasp at straws. But I guess those were the ones that stuck out because they're the most ridiculous explanations. I mean, if you really wanted to make an explanation, I guess the tourism scheme is the most credible, or just that, you could say, well, Zamora just made it all up, and that's that. Zamora and Wilcox had a beer and decided that they were going to play a prank on the entire world or something like that. But still, it's a bit of a stretch to fit the evidence.
I just don't understand why there's so many people to jump out of nowhere and tell the world that that it was made up, or that it was a prank, or we come up with alternate. Like, why can't they just accept what he said? Yeah. And say, well, whether it happened or not, who knows? But that's what he said happened.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mentioned last time how you see these cases like on Larry King. Larry King has done a few specials about UFOs, and he always gets like a debunker in, or a skeptic, and it's generally the skeptic has no idea what he's talking about, and tries to make these really, really stretching the imagination claims that are like these three aircraft pilots, the Air Force pilots, saw this same thing and they were making notes at the same time that they were observing it, but somehow the skeptic claimed that they were actually conflating their story, confabulating their stories. So after they saw a lighthouse, they talked about it for hours later and confabulated their story so they believed they actually saw a craft with a light on it that moved and stopped in midair and then went off in a 90-degree direction. I mean, how how many mental gymnastics do you have to go through to believe that that's actually a credible explanation of the events? It doesn't work. I mean, either you have to question the integrity, the honesty of the people who are reporting it, or you have to say there's something else going on. But that explanation really doesn't fit the facts, and that's what you find with so many of these skeptics. They're willing to squeeze it any way they can. The other example was with Hynek and the swamp gas in Michigan. It just doesn't work. And for that incident, I think the sheriff was discussing it with Hynek before Hynek made a public release about it. And the sheriff was like, well, that's funny he's saying that now, because yesterday he was saying, I have no idea what I'm going to tell these people. Especially in that case, of course, Hynek had significant pressure to come up with some kind of story which would make it seem banal.
That was his job.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it yourself. He was selected to play it that way from the beginning.
Yep.
It's just a shame he didn't tie up all the loose ends. It seems like it was more of an honest time back then.
I don't know about that. in some ways, yeah. In journalism, yeah.
I thought what I wanted to show you was the video footage, time-lapse video footage of the volcano in Chile.
Yep.
What's it called?
It's called Colobo or something.
I had it here a minute ago.
Okay. All right. We'll bring it up on the screen now so you can see this footage of a purported UFO in Chile. And when I watched it, I said that we saw the time lapse from RT, and you could see lightning flashing either side of it, and it's playing at like a rate of 1 minute per second. So every second represents a minute in real time. And then you see this white ball hover, like half obscured by the clouds, and it just stays there for about 3 or 4 seconds. So really, it's staying there for 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah,
that's it. I came across it when I was looking for Blue Book related material, and it was like, hey, check out the latest UFO caught on digital, and it was like, this is an example of UFO. So I'm like, hey, Kurt, check out the latest UFO pic, and it was nearly instant. It's like, that's not a UFO. That's ball lightning. I'm like,
I didn't say it. I said it could be ball lightning because I'm not a meteorologist. I have no idea. But then we did a little research into ball lightning, and the first video that came up was this guy on the Weather Channel, and he's like, imagine this light bulb is actually outside your house, and suddenly it enters your house through the window. Like, I think he said it was like through a closed window. Is that what he was saying?
It seemed like it went through the wall, by the way.
Yeah, he was describing it like it just like straight up went through some other matter, and then it's in the middle of your lounge room, and suddenly it just fizzles out or explodes. And he also said nobody really knows what ball lightning is. Like it's extremely difficult to understand lightning on its own, but ball lightning is even more mysterious. So it seems like ball lightning is almost like saying UFO. Like even if you can explain it as ball lightning, it's not much of an explanation. But there might be more to that and require more research.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason why I showed you the video in the first place of perhaps ball lightning was so that we could look at it and see how it would fit into the questionnaire of Project Blue Book.
Yep.
I wanted to see whether we would do any good trying to, whether we'd sound credible putting it into the model that the questionnaire they're asking everyone. And, we didn't even get that far because it appears like, we don't even know how to classify anomalies of light that we find in the sky. So it's like, well, we really got nothing to base it on. It's like, is it lightning, or is it an object, or is it material, or is it a glitch in the matrix? I don't know. And they don't either. So that was that.
Yeah. So if you really want to be an alien coming to Earth, what you really need to do is fit out your spaceship to look like ball lightning. Make it a couple of meters in diameter, and then you can just fly around in the shining ball of light, and you'll probably be able to go undetected. I mean, even Will Smith won't be able to find you. Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones won't be able to
But maybe
find
the
you.
new, the young version of Tommy, because he would have been around the 50s. He would have been in his prime.
All right. Out there chasing ball lightning.
I thought you were pulling my leg. I had never heard
About
of the term.
ball lightning.
Never
Oh,
heard
yeah.
of it before.
Okay.
I don't know. When did you first come across the term?
I have no idea. I have heard that there's some kind of experiment where you can generate it using your microwave. I don't know if it's really safe to do at home. But you put some metal and certain things in your microwave, and you can generate ball lightning.
I'm sure the guys at Tesla motor cars know all about that.
Okay, next they're going to be making an appliance where you attach a piece of ball lightning to your wall and it powers your entire home.
It's like, what the hell is that? That's just my Power Orb 2000.
Yeah. Elon Musk's balls, hang them on the wall.
Yeah, you get pairs, wouldn't you? I'd want two to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Like one lightning ball isn't enough.
Now you know a little bit about Project Blue Book. Cool. My name's Kurt Robinson.
My name's Aaron Battle.
We've been the Paradise Paradox and continue to be the Paradise Paradox. So press like on YouTube, press comment on YouTube, press subscribe on YouTube, press like on Facebook, press subscribe on iTunes and Pocket Casts, and have a great day.
I don't know what to say now. That was a mind-blowing episode. I guess what I shouldn't have done is get the daily pictures up here. I was distracted the whole way.